Now turn to Section 1. Section 1. You will hear a woman phoning a restaurant to book a room for a party. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. You will see that there is an example that has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Good morning, Shaw's Restaurant.
Hi, I'd like to book one of your function rooms for a party, please.
Okay, fine. How many people are you expecting for the party?
Well, I'm not quite sure yet, but about 60.
There are about 60 people expected, so 60 has been written in the space. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Good morning, Shaw's Restaurant.
Hi, I'd like to book one of your function rooms for a party, please.
Okay, fine. How many people are you expecting for the party?
Well, I'm not quite sure yet, but about 60.
Fine. So you will need a big room. And what day were you thinking of?
The party's for my daughter's birthday. It's her 21st. Her birthday's actually on the 17th of November, but that's a Friday, so we thought we'd have her party on the 18th as that's a Saturday. There'll be lots of her friends there as well as all the family.
And what time would you like the room for?
Oh, I'm not sure. 7:45? Not too late.
Okay.
And people will probably be leaving about 11.
Fine. We're open until 11:30.
Excellent. And what about the menu?
So, do you want a sit-down meal with waiter service?
Yes, not a buffet.
Right. Well, there are several options including different menus at various prices. So there's the standard menu. That's £25 per person.
Okay.
Or the celebration menu, which is 3 courses. It's very popular. That's £35.
Okay, I think I'd rather go with that.
And there's also our gold menu. That's a 5-course menu at £50.
No, that's definitely too expensive.
Okay.
Now, not all the guests eat meat. Will there be something for them?
Of course. We'll make sure there's a vegetarian option for each course.
Great.
And do you know if any of the guests have food allergies? Anything like shellfish, for example?
I'll need to check, but I do know that one of my daughter's friends is very allergic to strawberries. Even just being near them can be a problem.
Okay. I'll make a note to our chef to avoid those completely. Do you have any other requests for desserts?
Well, I'd like a choice if possible. And could we have cheese as well?
Of course, no problem. We can provide that.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
Now, do you have any other requests I could help with? What about after-dinner entertainment? You can book a band if you'd like live music.
Actually, I think a disco would be best if you can arrange that.
No problem.
And I heard you might be able to put on a fireworks display. Is that possible?
We aren't offering that service anymore, I'm afraid. It was just too expensive.
Oh, I see.
Now, the menu package you've chosen includes a few other nice things.
Oh, like what?
We'll decorate the room for you, which creates a nice party atmosphere. We can use different colors for the balloons: silver, gold.
She loves pink, but actually, I think she'd prefer flowers to balloons. So let's go for them instead, in the same color.
No problem. Now, you mentioned that the party's for your daughter. We make birthday cakes if you'd like one.
Okay, yes, we'll definitely want a cake.
And we can put a special message on top. What would you like?
Congratulations, and then her name. That's Susie.
Fine.
Now, one or two of the guests are coming by train, but they stop running quite early, so they'll need a taxi to take them to the Forest Hotel after the party. Is that something you can sort out?
Absolutely. Anything else?
I think that's all for now.
Okay. Well, just get in touch if you think of anything else. Now, if I can just take some contact details, I just need your name and phone number.
I'm Maria Nelson, and my number's 07749 132 760.
Excellent. We look forward to seeing you soon.
That is the end of Section 1. You now have half a minute
Section
to
2.
check your answers.
You will hear a radio broadcast about a new museum which specializes in vacuum cleaners. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
A new museum has just opened dedicated to vacuum cleaners. Yes, that's right, vacuum cleaners, the machines powered by electricity that suck up the dust and dirt from the floor. The museum's opened in a town called Eastwood in central England. Until now, Eastwood used to be an industrial town where people used to be employed as coal miners. But then, a local resident called James Brown became frustrated with the nation's failure to recognize the importance of vacuum cleaners, and he decided to set up his own museum. James first fell in love with vacuum cleaners when he was only 4 years old. At the time, his mother was unwell, so he used to help her out by vacuuming the house, and it was to be the start of the lifelong love affair with this humble household appliance. However, it wasn't until James was 8 years old that he first acquired his own vacuum cleaner. After it had been thrown away on the streets, he took it home, cleaned it up, and plugged it in. Amazingly, it still worked. And that was the beginning of his collections. By the time he was in his teens, his collections had grown to 30. The collection continued to grow until it reached the final count of 126, which it stands at today. James is delighted to share his enthusiasm of vacuum cleaners with visitors. One of his favorite party tricks is to blindfold his eyes so he can't see and ask someone to switch on one of the machines. When I tested him out on 5 different machines, switching them on and pushing them across the floor, he had no problem telling me the manufacturer of each one, and he could even tell its age. Loading on now a common household appliance, it wasn't until 1950s that most people could afford to buy a vacuum cleaner, as before that they were very expensive. In today's money, you would have had to pay around a third of the price for an average car, which is around 3 months' wages for most people. Like most modern appliances, the invention of a production line halved the price almost immediately. But James is not the only vacuum cleaner aficionado out there, and a few years ago, he made a special trip to the USA to the factory of his favorite, the Kirby vacuum cleaner. There is also an American website called Vacuum Land, that's dedicated to vacuum cleaner collectors. This year, they're even holding a convention in Texas with competition, awards, and lectures on the subject. So James might want to pop back to the United States to meet some vacuum lovers. So, if you've been inspired and want to visit James's Vacuum Cleaner Museum, what days could you go to visit? Well, they're open all year round from 9:30 a.m. to 5:30 p.m. from Tuesdays to Saturdays, except Thursdays when they're open until 7 p.m. and Mondays when the museum is closed.
Before you hear the rest of the broadcast, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen carefully and answer questions 16 to 20.
The history of the vacuum cleaner is an interesting one. The first commercially available powered vacuum cleaner was invented in 1901 and was called the Puffing Billy. It was so large it had to be pulled by horses and parked outside the house where the cleaning was being done. It was initially driven by an oil engine, although it was later adapted to be powered by electricity, and it was used to clean the carpets and the palace of King Edward VII in London. One of the most famous electric vacuum cleaners is known as the Hoover. This was developed in the USA in 1908. It's often thought that it was created by a Mr. Hoover, but in fact, it was created by a James Spangler, who worked as a cleaner in a department store. Mr. Hoover was a businessman who bought the idea and then developed and marketed it in the USA and other countries. The Electrolytes Model 5 was developed in 1925. Up until that time, vacuum cleaners had been heavy devices which were not easily bought from. This was a lighter model which laid on the floor and can be pulled along on two strips of metal, and this was an idea that was copied by many other manufacturers. Then there's the Electrolytes 30 or XXX, which was developed in 1937 in the USA and is perhaps the most visually elegant vacuum cleaner of all, with its sleek lines inspired by the Art Deco architecture popular in the 1930s. The most prized model in James's museum is the Kirby model, which is actually gold-plated. Kirby made Peace's trophy, but they also manufacture vacuum cleaners for everyday use, as sold only by salesmen who demonstrated them only in the customer's home. But even the everyday model might eventually become collector's items. Now, if you want to visit the museum,
That is the end of Section 2. You now have half a minute to check your
turn
answers.
to Section 3. Section 3. You will hear a tutor called Dr. Harris and a student called Lisa discussing Lisa's postgraduate research project on the role of health visitors. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Hi, Lisa. Good to see you again, especially since you've chosen to do your master's with us.
Well, I enjoyed my first degree in nursing, and I decided I want to become a health visitor. You know, someone who promotes health and well-being and is part of a team within a community, getting out and meeting people of all ages. So that's why I chose this research project.
Excellent. And your focus, the role of a health visitor in the community, is spot on. But at this stage, you need to keep an open mind so you can respond to initial findings once you get underway.
From what I read, the role seems to vary quite considerably.
Yes, Some health visitors tend to focus on liaising with family doctors, others work independently with new patients. The work of health visitors in future is most likely to rely on the relationship between these roles, and I think that would be an interesting angle for you to pursue at some stage.
Yes, what I really want to impact is the problem of physical development checks, which start with babies when they are only a few days old.
Right.
Another area which I am thinking of investigating is the monitoring of nurseries, which is currently under review. And there is the issue of preschools, at what age they should take very young children. I thought I'd also include childminders, the individuals in the area of Haines that might not be qualified but look after young children.
That's an area I'd stay clear of as it's very complex.
Okay, will do. Anyway, I'd also like to make a short film about a few children.
A good idea, but it will depend on building up a relationship with one or two health visitors willing to introduce you to a family. An opportunity like that would allow you to look at how young children begin to form words, for example.
And peer relationships between children, as well as the ways in which they relate and play with each other, especially when they are around 2 to 3 years old, although early use of language is my main interest.
Okay, but there are other topic areas I'd like you to consider before we finalize the content and structure of your research. An equally important area is the child's home environment and the effect of a newborn baby.
Right.
You need to consider the impact of this on the parents, particularly if the family lives in poor economic circumstances. Of course, the additional expense could be a worry, especially if there are other children. Certainly, all those matters are very sensitive and not necessarily easy to detect. There's plenty of help available, but many people often feel too proud to ask for it.
This is the area where I will need to be familiar with family law, isn't it?
Very much so. By all means, be aware of the medical conditions, and you also need to consider social practice. But you'll find that in most circumstances you will have to refer to the law to understand how far a health visitor can intervene.
Yes, I appreciate that.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
Now, your book list. I'm glad to see worldwide health care policies tops your list.
Well, I wasn't sure how relevant it would be, but it's a new edition, so the information is current.
Yes, some of it may not be relevant, but it's important to keep abreast of developments in other countries, which may inform our own government's legislation.
I understand. What about supporting vulnerable families? It's not as costly as some of the other books on my list.
It's an excellent buy considering the price, even though it does leave a few things out.
I've already ordered Health Visitors and Child Protection. I hope that was right.
Well, it's very expensive, but it's a sound investment, and there aren't many textbooks which cover as much detail as this. It will be a valuable reference even if the style is occasionally boring.
And what about the future of health visiting? I'm unsure how useful it will be.
Useful in a utilitarian sense? Probably not, but it's stimulating in the way the writer considers what health visiting could be like in a perfect world. I'd suggest dipping into it to discover the improvements which could be made if money were no object.
And resources for health visitors?
Strangely enough, it's not as helpful as the title suggested. It offers a huge variety of activities and strategies which are great when working with young children, but they're presented in a rather haphazard way, and the index isn't much use either. Be very careful when using it.
Okay.
That is the end of Section 3. You now have half a minute to check
Now
your
turn
answers.
to Section 4. Section 4. You will hear a lecturer giving a talk to psychology students about people's sense of smell. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good afternoon. So far in this course on perception, we have focused on sight. Today, we're going to move on to consider a sense that has received rather less attention in the literature on human perception. That is, our sense of smell. It's often said that our ability to sense smells is much less developed than that of animals, such as the dog, or a fish, such as the shark, or, of course, the creature, which is believed to have the most acute sense of smell of all, the bear. Yet it seems that this belief that the human sense of smell is weak might actually be a misconception. According to a number of recent studies, our noses are sensitive instruments that influence us in surprising ways. Subtle smells can change your mood. Smell can even influence what you go for when you have to make choices, perhaps about whether to buy something or not. Yet, the power that smell has over us is, by and large, not something that we are aware of. So the big mystery is why it is subconscious. One possible reason is that our noses aren't well equipped to detect the source of an odor, and so we dismiss it. Let's look at some practical examples of how smell can influence us. The power of smell will be no news to estate agents. They often suggest that people who want to sell a house arrange things so that there is a smell of newly baked bread on the property to encourage viewers to want to buy it. But there are more subtle and surprising effects too. For instance, Dutch researchers carried out a study into the impact of smell in a nightclub. They discovered, rather to their surprise, that when the aroma of oranges was pumped into the venue, the guests partied harder. They danced more, rated their night as more enjoyable, and even thought the music was better than when there was no added scent. Another study found that the hint of a smell wafting out of a hidden bucket of lemon-scented detergent was enough to persuade students to clean the communal kitchen after using it, even though the vast majority of them hadn't actually registered the smell. Other work has found that scent can influence our cognitive skills. A study this year gave participants a task to test their decision-making abilities. It found that subjecting people to a new smell, either good or bad, let people relying on their emotions to make a decision rather than relying on logic. As a result, these people performed significantly worse than normal when doing the task. Our sense of smell may even help us to pick up on how those around us are feeling. It has been shown that certain animals can smell each other's fear. Is it possible that humans can do the same thing? To test the idea, one team of scientists took sweat samples from people doing a skydive for the first time. They also took sweat samples from the same people after they had worked up their sweat in a gym, a situation where no fear is involved. They presented the different samples in turn to a series of subjects who did not know the reason for the experiment. As they did this, the scientists observed these subjects' brain activity by means of a scanner, and they saw a much stronger reaction to the skydive sweat. The team of scientists next tested whether the smell of fear sweat, that is, the sweat of the skydivers, affected people's responses to various facial expressions. Normally, people pay more attention to angry faces because they pose a threat. However, after smelling the fear sweat, the participants gave the same amount of attention to neutral facial expressions. Despite the impact of smell, most people seem totally unaware of how they are being affected by scents. However, some psychologists have been trying to train people's noses. They persuaded 32 students to wear blindfolds and ear defenders and see whether they could sniff out a trail of chocolate. They found that after 3 days of practice, the students were all much more accurate in following the trail. Further evidence of our ability to train our noses comes from a chef who lost her sense of smell after an illness. Knowing that her job depended on her having a good nose, she trained herself gradually by sniffing spices for 10 minutes a day. Gradually, her ability to smell returned. Now, let's talk on about the...
That is the end of Section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
IELTS Listening, version 56658. You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 parts. Write all your answers in the listening question booklet. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to Part 1 on page 2 of your question booklet. Part 1. You will hear a teenager asking about joining a film club. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 4.
This is my New Zealand school visa.
আর এটা হচ্ছে আমার নিউজিল্যান্ডের স্কুলিং ভিসা
29 দিন পর আমার ছেলের ভিসা হয়েছে
Now listen carefully and answer IELTS Listening, version 56658. You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 parts. Write all your answers in the listening question booklet. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to Part 1 on page 2 of your question booklet. Part 1. You will hear a teenager asking about joining a film club. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 4. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Hi, can I help you?
Yeah, I saw on the internet that you have a film club here at the cinema, but there wasn't a lot about it. Can you tell me a bit more?
Yes, we're still setting up the web page. Sorry about that. We only started the club a few months ago. It's been very popular right from the beginning. We have regular film showings and there are lots of other benefits.
How often does the club meet?
Every 2 weeks, on Thursday nights.
OK. And I'm 16, so could I join?
Sure. People of any age can join.
Right. So how much does it cost to join?
Well, it depends. The basic charge is £24 a season, but for people eligible for concessions, it's £21.50.
I'm a student.
You'd get the concession rate then.
That's good.
That entitles you to free entry to the club films and also to £2 off tickets for all other films on at the cinema. So you'd pay £4.50 instead of £6.50.
Great. OK.
Now, I don't know if this applies to you, but club members are also eligible for 3 hours complimentary parking when there's a film on.
Well, I don't drive, but my girlfriend does, so it might be useful, yes. OK, well, I'd definitely like to join.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 5 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 5 to 10.
Can you give me any information about the next few films you're showing?
I'm afraid we've run out of leaflets for this season, so I'll tell you about the next few films and hopefully we'll have all the details on the internet soon. So the next meeting's this Thursday, October the 14th, and that's a film called Pablo.
Ah, I read the reviews of that. It's set in Argentina, isn't it? About a child who's run away from home?
That's right. It just came out recently.
And the kid somehow gets on TV and he wins a dance competition or something.
A singing competition, yeah. I haven't seen it either, but it tells you on the posters. Yes, it sounds really good.
Well, I definitely want to see that. What's on after that?
On October the 28th, there's an American film called The Soldier. That's an old silent movie. But in this showing, we have someone who'll accompany it on the piano, just like they used to in the old cinemas, though it was sometimes an organ accompaniment in those days.
It must be a pretty old film then. When did they release the first talkies? 1926 or 27?
Yes, well, this was made in 1922, so well before. Though I think they had short feature films with sound by 1923, actually.
So what sort of film is it?
Well, it's billed as a comedy, though you'd think it was a war film from the title. I don't know much about the plot. We don't have much information, though you could always look it up on the internet.
Yeah, I'll do that.
Then the next film after that, so that'll be, let's see, the 11th of November, is a film about animals. And it's just called Tiger. And that's a cartoon film, which makes it sound as if it's for children, but actually it's aimed at adults and it's really quite frightening in places. I saw it when it first came out.
What's it about?
It's got no humans in it at all. It's just about the effect of environmental changes millions of years ago on the animals who lived then. It's a really strange film. There's a talk afterwards given by the director, so that should be very popular. You'll need to book early for that, I should think.
Right. Well, thanks for all that. Now, if you can give me the application form...
Sure.
That is the end of Part 1. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to Part 1. Part 2. You will hear a radio program in which a man called Stephen talks about an organization called extrahands.com. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
Stephen Jennings has been involved with an intriguing organization called extrahands.com. I'll let him explain.
Thanks. Yes, extrahands.com was started 15 years ago by two New Zealanders who'd bought an old farm building and some land. They wanted to go organic, but they realized they'd need help clearing the fields for cultivation, and they just didn't have the money to pay for it. But they knew lots of people wanted to visit New Zealand. So they set up a website and advertised for volunteers to come and help on the farm there. Anyway, they got lots of volunteers, and they got their farm going, and extrahands.com was born. Today, the organization matches people who need help with people who are willing to work as a way of seeing the world. You can either be a host if you need assistance, or a volunteer if you're offering to work. In either case, to become a member, you just fill out a form on the extrahands.com website and pay the $25 subscription. You only have to do that once. But for your membership to stay active, every 12 months you have to go back to the website and check the details on your form there, adding information about any help you requested or work you did over that period. So how does it work? Well, if a host has some work that needs to be done, he or she goes to the extrahands.com website and posts a description of the work. So the way most volunteers access these details on the website is by specifying the country or region they're interested in working in, but a few search according to how long they want to work for. Not many people have strong feelings about what sort of work they want to do. They're mostly fairly open about it. If you're interested in volunteering for a particular job, you can email your host to arrange the dates and establish things like accommodation and hours of work. It's all fairly informal. There are no legal documents or anything like that. But you do both need to have some sort of written record of what's been agreed before you actually arrive. What about problems? Well, there are too many members for the organization to be able to investigate them all. But there's an online message board where members can post details of any difficulties they've had, things like unsatisfactory accommodation or volunteers who haven't done the work agreed, and this works very well.
Before you hear the rest of the program, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
I know you've personally had lots of extrahands.com placements, Stephen. Tell us about them.
Well, my first placement was in Portugal, where I helped a local guy with a guidebook he'd written in English. I read what he'd written and corrected the English and made some suggestions for improving it. I was very pleased with it when I finished, and I learned lots about the country. The next placement was on the other side of the world, in Australia. I was on a farm in the middle of nowhere, and since I'm pretty good in the kitchen, they had me fixing meals for 30 sheep shearers. I stayed 2 months, and it was a lot of fun, but I can tell you I was glad to get back home to California and just lie on a beach and relax. Okay, then, after a well-deserved rest, I did a job in South Korea for a small company that wanted an English speaker to show visiting Americans around. They gave me some books to read, and I learned as I worked. I loved it, and I developed a real taste for Korean food. My most difficult job was for an older lady in the USA. She had a gigantic house and grounds, but she couldn't maintain them all herself. So I worked for her, digging and planting flowers and stuff around her swimming pool. And she grew tons of vegetables, too. She was nice, but she fed me hot dogs morning, noon, and night. Now, my most recent placement was last summer in Italy. I helped a family add a room onto their house. I didn't speak Italian or know the first thing about building, but the husband had an English-Italian phrase book, and together with sign language showed me exactly what to do. And the wife's cooking was out of this world.
Thanks, Stephen. And if you want more information about...
That is the end of Part 2. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to Part 2. Part 3. You will hear part of a discussion between two drama students called Charles and Lorna about a songwriting course. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Hi, Charles. I'm writing my report on the songwriting course for drama students. You know, the 1-week residential course for drama students from different universities where you learn about writing songs. You did that course last year, didn't you? Could you give me some tips for the report? I'm having a few problems with it.
Yes, it was great. Well, Lorna, you could start by thinking about what you got out of it.
Evaluating how useful it was is simple. The challenge is not to go over length.
Referring to published sources might help. That would make it more scholarly too.
OK, I'll go with that.
And saying why you did the songwriting course is important. Some people just do it as another string to their bow to help with auditions for work and things. I thought it was a good opportunity to try out new techniques for communicating feelings and emotions. I was already confident about singing before I did it.
I thought it was the location of the course which made it special, being held in a country house rather than in a university. They were doing some building work on part of the house, though, so it wasn't always easy to concentrate.
I enjoyed the workshop most. How about you?
Well, we were divided into 6 small groups for the afternoon, each with their own advisor. That was the best bit for me, having that discussion with an expert. When we got into pairs to start writing our songs, the idea was to combine people with different levels of knowledge and experience. But my partner preferred working on her own generally.
And what did you think of the course content? I hadn't realised before how important the structure of a song is to its success.
Yes, we learned it's no use writing the most beautiful words and melodies if there's no shape. and we learned about the importance of a chorus in a song.
I knew about that stuff from my singing classes. It's a bit obvious, isn't it?
I suppose so. It was the input on lyrical styles and forms that I found tedious. You could always look them up on the web.
Anyway, how did you get on with writing your song?
It was tough, and Peggy, my partner, was hard work, which wasn't funny, and writing was a slow process as a result of our lack of communication. By the time we finished, I was exhausted.
Writing music from the heart is like that, especially by the end of a course.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
Well, that's got the report sorted, thanks. Have you decided which teachers' workshops you're going to do next term?
I want to do Bob Lacey's. He's got a brilliant reputation for voice coaching. You know, getting us to use dialects and different pronunciation and stuff. He gets you to do things like read out a newspaper article in character. It's amazing.
I'm thinking of going to Evelyn Chance's workshop.
Oh, Evelyn. She's quite a character. Is she running the stage fights course again?
Yes, fencing and pretend punches and throwing techniques. She really knows how to help actors use the whole of the space available.
Lots of people like Ted Winter's workshop.
He knows how to deliver. He's keen on actors conveying emotion through their bodies and faces alone. It's a great way to reveal complex relationships and situations to an audience without making a speech of any kind. I'm definitely going to sign up for that one.
If you want to understand a director's ideas, Kevin Gray's workshop would be perfect for you. He likes telling people what to do, and he's always saying you can't have a company of actors reading a play any way they want because they'd end up fighting amongst themselves. They must listen to the director.
What about Dorothy Thomas? She's good at activities for getting rid of stress and, emptying your mind of all thoughts about the past, and that can really help when acting.
Well, I think I'll put my name down for...
That is the end of Part 3. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to Part 3.
Part 4. You will hear part of a talk about recent research into the design of workplaces. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Hello everyone. I recently completed some important research into the way office space is designed and its impact on employees. The open plan office had been the norm for offices around the world. I'm sure you can picture one. A big room with maybe 50 or 100 workers sitting at their workstations. You might think open plan designs are a recent phenomenon, but they actually came about in the early 20th century, when businesses needed large numbers of people to do typing. These employees, usually women, used to have to sit in rows working away at their typewriters under the watchful eye of their supervisor. Over the years, designers have come up with several variations on the open theme. In particular, this has been achieved through furnishings. The early designs featured separate desks. A subsequent design introduced the concept of the cubicle. These can have either high screens that workers can't see over, or a screen just low enough to keep a lookout for the manager. And nowadays, with the increase in large call centres, a phenomenon known as hot desking is common. In this system, employees working on different shifts are asked to share the same workstation. As you can imagine, this is not very popular with staff, as there is little opportunity to personalise your workspace. In fact, my research shows that employees in general dislike the open plan design. As a part of my research, I conducted a survey of the staff in several large companies with open plan offices. The employees all voiced similar concerns about the design. Firstly, they felt that the open plan took away their privacy, but many also felt the need to carry their valuables with them at all times. So, to some extent, they also felt there was less security with these designs. Another common complaint may be something for employers to consider when choosing this type of design, and this was that these types of office space are bad for the health. I was intrigued by this possibility, but looking at staff records, it does seem to be borne out. So, if this design is so unpopular, why is it so commonplace? Well, the answer to that is in the benefits that the employers feel this type of design has. Of course, there is the obvious benefit that this design significantly reduces costs, both in terms of rent and even in terms of energy use. Employers also argue that an open plan design leads to better teamwork and communication. They also feel that new staff can learn from observing other workers, so this design can actually help in training staff. However, the complaints voiced by employees seem to suggest that the disadvantages far outweigh the advantages. The reality is that unhappy workers are unlikely to work well together, and there is plenty of evidence to suggest workers are frequently distracted from their work by the noise that is all around them. What is clear is that as designers, we need to think carefully about the impact that our design has both on the staff involved and the work that they do.
That is the end of part 4. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to part 4. That is the end of the listening test. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet. hear two friends choosing a campsite together for their holiday with their families. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Shall we have a look at this information about campsites, and then perhaps we can choose where to go on holiday?
Yes, my children are very excited about our two families going away together again this year. Shall we look at Westerly campsite first?
Yes, it says it's most suitable for children under 12 years old. So that should be fine for us. Your daughter's just 11, isn't she?
Yes, that's right.
Now, where is the Westerly campsite? Is it the one next to a lake?
That's another one. This one's by the sea. Perfect.
Yes, that's a good place to go in the summer when the weather's hot.
This brochure says that most children who go to Westerly campsite love the animals they can see there. There's a special area where they can go and feed them.
We might see some interesting birds too. Oh, and look, it says a farmer comes every day and you can buy eggs from him.
Great for breakfast. I wonder if he sells other things like cheese, but it's not mentioned.
I don't know. I think they grow a lot of fruit in that area, so he might sell that.
Another thing I like about this campsite is that they let you make a fire. We could cook some sausages and sing songs around it in the evenings. And perhaps it would be a good way to meet other families there too.
Great. And it isn't too expensive. £6 per adult per night. £3 per child. But wait, families of 4 can get it for £15.75 a night. That works out even cheaper.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
Let's look at a couple of other campsites before we decide.
Yes. Let's look at Snetton Forest campsite. It's even cheaper. £5 per adult and children under 10 are free. They say it's a very good place if you're keen on fishing. And they even give you tips on where to go to have the best chance of catching some.
I prefer walking or hiking, and so do the rest of my family, so I'm not sure that will attract us that much. Oh, look! It says you can rent a bike to go around the forest. I'd do that. And your children would like that too, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. We could all go somewhere and have a picnic. Look, this is interesting too. At Snetton, they get all the children together to play football. Your children would love that. And your husband, Mike, plays too, doesn't he?
Yes, that sounds good. Well, Mike's more into tennis, actually, but I'm sure he'd be happy to be a referee if they needed one. Here's some information about Trent Valley campsite. I've heard about this one. There's a festival near the campsite in June and it's really busy, so they say for families it's better in July when it's a bit quieter.
Well, that would be just right for us because we have to go in the school summer holidays. Let's look at what it says about it. Oh, look. It's quite a long way to the nearest village. 8 kilometres. It's too far to walk.
But this one has got an open-air pool, which we'd all love in the summer. And they have a little shop where you can buy basic things like bread and milk.
That's really useful. And there's lots to do there. I think on Saturday nights...
That is the end of part 1. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to part 1.
Section 2. You will hear a radio program about starting a business. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16. Good evening. My name is Arthur Jones. I'm very glad to have this opportunity to speak to you over the radio. The host asked me to give a talk about my experience of starting my own business. I can't say my business is successful, but there are some things that I want to share with you, which I think will be helpful if you want to start your own company. I've talked to many young people, and they told me that they are afraid of making mistakes when they start their business. What I want to say is that mistakes are very common, especially when you do something new. Mistakes can actually show you where you need to improve, so you can take actions about them and use the chance to learn new methods. This is a very important attitude you should have. Besides, most mistakes are not that fatal. Don't be too anxious when they occur. Next, I want to go on to talk about self-confidence, which is quite important in achieving business success. Being self-confident means that you can have faith in yourself and what you do. Self-confidence can be gained through hard work, even playing sports. However, sometimes self-confidence may make you ignore problems and even cause failure. Business leaders should remain calm and not take impulsive actions. I know that when people start their business, they have confusions. They don't know how they can be more professional. They read business journals or watch related videos, but these don't seem to help sometimes. My suggestion is that instead of aimlessly trying many new things, they should always be committed to their goal. As long as they stick to it, they will not be easily distracted or confused by other things, and they are sure to get better. We will all meet difficulties, especially at the beginning. We can't always rely on ourselves to solve all the problems. I had a problem with marketing earlier this year. Luckily, I found an expert to help me deal with it. So there's always a way, but we should know how and when to seek help from these people. Business leaders have different kinds of styles. Some are very good at public speaking, others are very down-to-earth and have strong executive skills. But in general, they should be able to win the respect from their employees so that they can carry out their orders more easily. There are times when a company might face risks. During such times, leaders will need to take prompt actions, and they can't always plan for distant future. Leaders should analyze and deal with the risks with caution. If they bear this in mind, there is always a way out. Before you hear the rest of the radio program, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20. At the beginning of my business, I experimented with quite a few strategies, hoping to find out the best solution for my business. Here is what I found. At first, my company wanted to work out prices for the products and make them realistic. However, prices are always changing, so they can't be fixed. Another thing I always keep in mind is that leaders must stay committed to their jobs. Without enough commitment, you may easily give up when problems happen. I have some friends whose businesses didn't survive during difficult times. It wasn't because they were stupid, it was just a lack of commitment. I can't always be sure that my products or services are better than my competitors, but I pay attention to details and try to improve all the little things, as they can actually make a big difference. You might worry that you don't have a very clear and sophisticated business strategy. Personally, I don't think it's a problem, because you will be changing them all the time anyway. In terms of support, at any stage we do need support from others to back up our business. The support can really make a difference. Before I started my business, my family helped me a lot, both financially and mentally. There were also people who gave me advice on how to run businesses successfully. However, these advice and ideas were not so practical to me, so I didn't really use them. Looking back, I felt lucky that I followed my own way of thinking. Also, I was short of funds back then, and I loaned money from the bank to start my company. I was grateful for that. That's what I want to share in today's program. If you have any questions for me, please send it to my email, which is... That is the end of Section 2. You now have half a minute to check
Section
your
3.
answers.
You will hear a discussion between two students called Mark and Fran about their presentation on some dolphins which are unique to New Zealand. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 24 on page 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 24.
Hi, Mark. Thanks for coming around.
Hi, Fran. No problem. We need to try and get this presentation finished.
Mark, let's start with the way dolphins make sounds.
Well, we all know that dolphins make clicking noises to communicate.
Yes, they have tongues and larynxes as humans do, but what's really strange about the dolphin is that the sounds are focused through an extraordinary organ called the melon, which most other sea mammals don't have.
So, shall I take over from there and speak about the different dolphin types? I want to share what we found out about those rare dolphins that are special just to New Zealand in particular.
Yeah, great. Put the emphasis on them. The rarest of all is the Hector's dolphin, isn't it? They are endangered, aren't they? I think that's mainly because so many of them get tangled up in fishing gear, especially gill nets, and die. I know that some conservationists are worried about the impact of the tourism industry on dolphin numbers, but I don't think that's a problem yet here. Also, remember that this species has a very long reproductive cycle, so their numbers don't get replenished quickly.
Yeah, that's really sad. But at least the New Zealand government established a sanctuary for them, didn't it? The fishing industry was against it, but I remember reading that the general public were very supportive of the decision. It was a consequence of a study done by some marine biologists. Having a protected breeding area has made a big difference to the dolphin population already.
Yeah, I think their numbers have swelled to over 7,000 in total, with a tiny group of just 89 living down off Southland, nearly 2,000 living near Christchurch on the east coast, and the biggest group surviving off the west coast. It's pretty wild country over there, so I guess there aren't as many tourists and fishermen to disturb them.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 25 to 30 on page 6. Now listen and answer questions 25 to 30.
OK, so how do you suggest I structure my part of the talk?
Well, you could start with the common dolphin, which inhabits the whole of the sea around New Zealand. And once you've covered everything to do with them, feeding and so on, you could go on to the more unusual types. The dusky dolphin is especially interesting because you know how all the dolphins travel in small social groups called pods? Well, the dusky dolphins travel in pods as big as 800 members.
And I think the duskies like to travel along beside fishing and tourist boats, don't they? Whereas the Hector's dolphins are different in that they prefer to go in the wake of boats, that is, coming along in the rear.
Yeah, they do. But they also dive down deep to avoid fast boats.
Oh, let's not forget the Maui, because they are endangered too, aren't they? There are only 150 of them left, and they inhabit only the western coastal waters off the North Island of New Zealand.
Yeah, it's a pity. They also face problems because of their tiny size. Now, the orca is actually a dolphin too, right?
Yes, surprisingly. So I'll include that in my talk. People call them killer whales, but in fact they're not whales. They're a huge and very fierce type of dolphin. In New Zealand, Kaikoura in the South Island is the best place to spot orcas swimming by, so people mistakenly think that's where they live. But actually, orcas cover vast distances.
Let's not forget to mention the bottlenose. It's bigger than nearly all the other dolphins, even the common dolphin.
Oh, but still not as big as the orca, right?
That's right. Well, I think that's our presentation done now.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 4 on page 7. Part 4. You will hear a man giving a lecture on his tyre recycling company to environmental science students. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good afternoon. I'm the Managing Director of Molectra Technologies,
and we are involved in recycling tyres from vehicles such as cars and trucks. This might not sound new or exciting, but the method we use is quite radical compared to traditional tyre recycling methods. We strongly believe that the business of recycling tyres is crucial, as amazingly, every month in Australia alone, the number of old tyres that are discarded exceeds 1.5 million. And when you look at the figure globally, it is a staggering 1.2 billion each year. For decades, various recycling methods have been trialled with varying degrees of success. In some cases, the solution was as bad as the problem. Incinerating tyres, for example, generates toxic fumes which are harmful to the environment. Breaking up whole tyres is energy intensive and produces a contaminated product with very little value. As a result, there was little incentive to get into the business because there was no profit in it. And yet, a tyre is made up of so many valuable components. And it is for this reason that we started trying out new recycling methods. In the end, our factory came up with a much improved system for recycling old tyres. The Molectra process is different for a number of reasons. Firstly, it is a lot cheaper to run because our machines are much more compact in comparison to traditional systems. This in turn reduces energy consumption. The wear and tear on the shredding equipment, which cuts up the tyres, is also reduced, as the tyres fed through them have already been softened. Costs are reduced by over 30% using our system. And, significantly, our machines can handle a tyre of any size, from the smallest bicycle or wheelbarrow right up to the largest earth-moving truck. Most other processes can only handle car tyres. Our technology has proven to work, and we have won many awards, including the Australian Museum's Eureka Award, and last year on a national TV program, we were chosen as the Invention of the Year. Winning that certainly opened many doors for us, with interest coming from 27 countries around the world, including the United States and China. To cope with the demand, we will soon have 10 more factories which will operate 24 hours a day just to stabilise the current stockpile. We are passionate about taking this process further, and so we have chosen to dedicate 5% of every dollar we make to research. In this way, we can ensure we are always the best in the business. So, let's look at the process we use, what we extract from the tyre in each stage of the process, and the uses that those materials can be put to. The first step of the process mechanically extracts the steel wires from the rim of the tyre. This high-quality wire can be cut into small pellets suitable for sandblasting shots. Next, after the tyres have been sliced into a number of segments depending on tyre diameter, they are chemically treated. This chemical treatment is essential as it removes dirt from the rubber prior to the rest of the process. The cleaning process also softens the tyres, making them easier to chop up. In the next stage, the fibre cords contained in the tyre segments are separated from the rubber using rollers. The fibres, which can include nylon and rayon, can be used as a reinforcement for concrete, or they can be used to form plastic panels. Then, the rubber is cut up into very small pieces known as crumb rubber. For a tyre weighing 10 kilograms, Molectra can recover 7.5 kilograms of crumb rubber that can be used to manufacture a range of rubber products, such as asphalt, used in road making. It is also used as insulation in buildings, or something simple like tiles for the floor. Alternatively, any or all of this crumb rubber can continue through to the final stage. This final stage involves our patented Molectra vac machine, which uses industrial microwave energy. This changes the remaining rubber into hydrocarbon, which can be used to make 3 different products. We can cheaply produce activated carbon, which is usually quite expensive to make from new materials.
It's used for treating water, as well as being an integral part of air filters. Secondly, as the carbon produced is very pure, in fact it's over 97.4% pure, we can crush it to form something called carbon black, which is used in the manufacture of batteries and also ink. Our process is very flexible, and we can alter the quantity of each of the three products depending on demand. Finally, we can even use the hydrocarbon to make oil. And we use this to generate electricity to power our own machines. It certainly helps to keep the costs down. And that's just about it. So if there are any questions...
That is the end of Part 4. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to Part 4. That is the end of the listening test. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet. Version 30677. You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 parts. Write all your answers in the listening question booklet. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to Part 1 on page 2 of your question booklet. Part 1. You will hear a telephone conversation between a customer and the manager of a house-sitting agency. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 6.
Hello, Oz House Sitters. Adam here.
Oh, hello.
My husband and I are going on a trip overseas, and we'd like someone to stay in our house and look after it while we're away. Is that something you can help us with?
It most certainly is. We can take care of all the arrangements for you.
OK, great.
Now, can I just get some contact details from you for the form? Your name is...
Jenny Hall.
Thank you. Now, what's your address?
14 Grey Street.
Is that G-R-E-Y or G-R-A-Y?
A-Y.
Right. And what's the suburb?
Greenfield.
Oh, I know it. And if I can just get a contact telephone number?
I'll give you my mobile number. That's probably the best one to use. It's 0491 577 248.
Thanks. Now, when did you want the house sitter to start?
We're flying out on the 25th of September, but my brother will be in the house for a few days until the 28th. So from the 29th of September, please.
I'll note that down. And how long do you want the house sitter for?
Well, I'll be attending a training course in Paris for 2 weeks, but we're also going to visit my niece in Singapore on the way home to Australia for a few days.
So, shall I put down 3 weeks?
That sounds about right. I think 4 would be too long.
Sure. Now, Jenny, can you tell me more about the features of your house? This helps us to match house sitters and homeowners.
Sure. What do you want to know?
Does the house have air conditioning?
No, we don't like using it. We prefer the fresh air. But last year we did put in a pool.
Very nice. And are there any other attractive features? Is your house near a beach, for example?
No, not really. We're about an hour's drive away. But we are close to a station, so it's handy for anyone getting into work and so on.
OK, great. Now, if our house sitter has their own transport, is there any space for them to park?
Well, we won't be taking our car, but it's a large double garage. There'll be space for one more.
OK, great. I'll note that down too.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 7 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 7 to 10.
And are there any special duties that you'll need the house sitter to carry out?
Oh, I don't know. What do people normally ask for?
Well, for example, one common chore is looking after the garden.
Oh, yes, we have an orange tree and an apple tree, which are both watered automatically, but we haven't connected the sprinkler to our lemon tree yet, so they'll need to water that one.
Sure. Now, Jenny, do you have any special requirements for your house sitter?
Well, I don't know if this is possible, but I'd probably rather have a couple than someone who's single. The house might be a bit too big for just one person.
Sure. Now, many of our owners ask for sitters without children. What's your preference?
Oh, that's no problem. There's nothing they can break.
What about smoking?
Oh, no. I can't stand the smell. Definitely not. Now, how do I know that my house is going to be safe with the house sitters?
Well, we check all of our house sitters very carefully. They have to provide references. But as well as that, you can ask for a police check if you want to.
Oh, yes, I'd like to do that, please.
OK, no problem. That's all I need for now.
OK.
That is the end of Part 1. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to Part 1. Part 2. You will hear a manager talking to staff of a graphic design company about the move to their new office building. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Part 2. You will hear part of a radio program in which a successful businessman is advising listeners on how to become a self-made millionaire. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Everybody dreams of becoming a millionaire one day. So we asked Arthur Knowles, who made his millions in the plumbing business, to give the budding entrepreneurs among you a few tips on how to make your first million. Arthur, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Sue.
So, Arthur, what advice do you have for our listeners?
Well, one thing I've heard people say is that when you're starting up a business, you can't afford to make mistakes. Well, I believe in the old saying, a person who never made a mistake never made anything. You can't really predict when you'll make mistakes, and you have to look at them as a positive experience, and one that means you won't make the same mistake again. You need to be able to cope with the world of business. But according to recent American business school studies, believing in yourself isn't enough by itself to guarantee success. Confidence can be a good thing, but a person can have too much confidence. And people who try to learn to be confident by buying those How to Succeed books are just wasting their time. The advice given in these American studies was that being a successful entrepreneur comes down to having the right attitude. It's no good getting depressed every time something goes wrong. Always keep your goals in mind and never give up. And don't listen to all the people around you who say, "Oh, this will never work." One thing I've learned in business is that you don't have to be an expert in everything, like marketing, for example. When I started my business, I tried to do it all myself, but I soon realized that although I knew everything there was to know about plumbing, I didn't have much idea about how to sell my ideas. So, I got someone who knew more about this to take care of the marketing side of things for me. And as for leadership, well, you've got to be someone your workers look up to because you've been seen to make the right decisions. You have to be able to control people, but listen to them at the same time. Some people are driven to make their companies successful, but that too often leads to a ruthless approach. Then there's the question of taking risks, even calculated ones. I personally feel it's actually better to tread carefully when it comes to taking short-term risks. You need a degree of vision, certainly, but it's easy to get carried away by your desire to increase profits. And if things go wrong, you can end up losing more than you gain.
Before you hear the rest of the program, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
So, if you have a great idea for a business,
What should you do next?
Well, the first thing to ask yourself is whether there's a need for your product or service. Can you cater for people's needs better than existing companies? You don't need to worry about whether it's original or not, because there isn't always enough of a demand for completely new ideas. And the second thing to ask yourself is not what colour should the packet be or how much should it cost, but do I care enough about this idea to dedicate the next 10 years of my life to it? Because realistically, that's how long it will take.
Tell us how you got started, Arthur. How do you explain your early success?
Well, I started my business just as the economy was going into a recession, which wasn't the best time, and I was lucky to survive, especially as the banks weren't being particularly supportive to small businesses at that time. If I'd listened to the business advice I was given back then, I'd never have got started. My strengths were that I knew I could provide a better service than my competitors, who really hadn't spotted the opportunities that were out there, and that my wife had a good job and was able to pay the household bills while I was getting the company on its feet. The first couple of years were very tough, but I knew I would make it eventually.
OK, now we're going to take some calls from listeners.
That is the end of Part 2. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to Part 2.
Section 3. You will hear two primary school trainee teachers called Stefan and Magda discussing their placements for science teaching. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26 on page 6. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Hi Magda, how was your placement?
It went really well. The kids really enjoyed the science I did with them.
So did mine. I think they found it very motivating.
Yes, the programme we had to teach was much better than the old-style science experiments we did at school.
Yes, though I don't understand why the children should have to build a model of a steam engine. I tried it with the kids, but I couldn't get it to work.
Me neither, and it really shows it's hard to get any real results.
Yes, and it's usually the children's parents, rather than the kids themselves, who favour that type of experiment. So what experiments did you do?
Well, one day a discussion started in class about breakfast cereals, about which one was best. One child then said that we should test them in class.
That's a nice idea.
Yes, and it wasn't expensive. We brought 4 different brands of cereal and had everyone evaluate them for taste, appearance and sogginess in milk.
And are you going to tell me which one won?
No, I'll let you do it yourself. It obviously isn't difficult to set up. Another experiment we did, the sports teacher's idea actually, was to spend a morning seeing how high various balls bounced. For example, do new tennis balls bounce higher than old ones? And do basketballs that are fully inflated bounce better than flatter ones?
And I guess you got some interesting data?
We did, and they had to make a chart to plot the results. It really improved their grasp of charts and graphs and calculation. Apparently they'd had problems understanding the point of graphs in the past.
Did all your experiments work out okay?
Well, we had one lesson on making paper from grass.
The children made a terrible mess in the classroom. Whatever they did didn't work, and it wasn't because it was difficult. I think it was because it didn't engage them at all. It didn't seem to motivate them.
My tie-dyeing experiment went well. They had to get a piece of material and twist it into a rope and then dye it. The children did end up with blue and green hands for a few days, though.
But don't you need to spend more than one lesson on that?
Yes, we did it over 3 classes. The children really loved it, though, and one suggested we make scarves from the result. I declined, as my sewing skills aren't up to much.
I guess the one experiment that everyone loved in my class was making glue from milk. I thought it would be a complete failure, but in fact it worked brilliantly. One reason, I suspect, is that they got feedback straight away. Some children get really restless if they have to wait for anything interesting to happen.
Yes, I think that's always a good idea. Really helps to make it a success.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30 on page 7. Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
I see you've got a diagram there for one of your experiments.
Yes, it was an idea I got from the internet. It was very easy and straightforward to set up. The idea is to make a condenser to extract essences from plants. The large container's made of metal.
Right, and that holds the hot water?
That's right, and it has a strainer which sits inside it. This is where you put the plant matter. We use plants like rosemary, as the essence you can extract is quite strong.
So what's the container right at the top?
It's made of glass. It's where we put the ice. The glass container has a drip tip at the bottom.
What's that for?
It's where the essence collects.
Where does the essence go then?
Into the dish at the bottom. It's made of pottery.
Sounds good. I might try it with my class.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 4 on page 8. Part 4. You will hear part of a talk about recent research into the design of workplaces. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Hello everyone. I recently completed some important research into the way office space is designed and its impact on employees. The open plan office had been the norm for offices around the world. I'm sure you can picture one. A big room with maybe 50 or 100 workers sitting at their workstations. You might think open plan designs are a recent phenomenon, but they actually came about in the early 20th century when businesses needed large numbers of people to do typing. These employees, usually women, used to have to sit in rows working away at their typewriters under the watchful eye of their supervisor. Over the years, designers have come up with several variations on the open theme. In particular, this has been achieved through furnishings. The early designs featured separate desks. A subsequent design introduced the concept of the cubicle. These can have either high screens that workers can't see over, or a screen just low enough to keep a lookout for the manager. And nowadays, with the increase in large call centres, a phenomenon known as hot desking is common. In this system, employees working on different shifts are asked to share the same workstation. As you can imagine, this is not very popular with staff as there is little opportunity to personalise your workspace. In fact, my research shows that employees in general dislike the open plan design. As a part of my research, I conducted a survey of the staff in several large companies with open plan offices. The employees all voiced similar concerns about the design. Firstly, they felt that the open plan took away their privacy, but many also felt the need to carry their valuables with them at all times. So, to some extent, they also felt there was less security with these designs. Another common complaint may be something for employers to consider when choosing this type of design, and this was that these types of office space are bad for the health. I was intrigued by this possibility, but looking at staff records, it does seem to be borne out. So, if this design is so unpopular, why is it so commonplace? Well, the answer to that is in the benefits that the employers feel this type of design has. Of course, there is the obvious benefit that this design significantly reduces costs, both in terms of rent and even in terms of energy use. Employers also argue that an open plan design leads to better teamwork and communication. They also feel that new staff can learn from observing other workers, so this design can actually help in training staff. However, the complaints voiced by employees seem to suggest that the disadvantages far outweigh the advantages. The reality is that unhappy workers are unlikely to work well together, and there is plenty of evidence to suggest workers are frequently distracted from their work by the noise that is all around them. What is clear is that as designers, we need to think carefully about the impact that our design has both on the staff involved and the work that they do.
That is the end of part 4. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to part 4. That is the end of the listening test. You now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the listening answer sheet. Test 3. This is the IELTS Listening test. You will hear a number of different recordings and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 parts. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet. Now turn to part 1. Part 1. You will hear a woman phoning a travel agency about hot air balloon rides. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Good morning. Smart Travel. Jason speaking.
Hi, good morning. I saw your advert in today's paper about hot air balloon trips. It sounds pretty exciting, and I wonder how much it costs.
Well, the price may vary depending on the location, number of participants, and add-ons. A single ride may cost you up to £280 per person, but if you choose group booking, there is a discount, and the cheapest flight is £125 each for a group booking of at least 10 people.
Oh, that's not too bad. What do you mean by add-ons?
They are optional items like taking photos for you during the ride, champagne, and sit-down breakfast after the flight. Upon completing the trip, we will provide each participant with a certificate, and that is entirely free of charge.
Can I book a ride over the phone?
Yes, that's an option. Reservations can be made 1 year ahead of your trip by telephone, but to pick a specific date, you must book online. A confirmation email will be sent to you right afterwards.
How high can the balloons go?
A hot air balloon's height is limited by the temperature of the air and how much fuel it can carry, and the highest altitude ever recorded for a ride is 1,800 meters, but most rides stay below 300 meters.
Oh boy, that's impressive. How long is a single ride?
The average hot air balloon ride lasts about an hour. The entire ballooning experience, which includes ground preparation, flight and post-flight packing up and celebration, may take 2 to 3 hours.
And what time are the flights?
Our flights generally meet about an hour before sunrise on the day. You will be notified of the exact meeting time the evening before your flight. Night flights are avoided due to weather conditions.
Fair enough. Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10. Which month do you recommend for a hot air balloon trip?
Autumn is the best time of year to take the trip. Not only can you see the changing hues of the trees from above, but it is a great way to spend time with the whole family before it gets too cold.
I see.
But please note that our flight may be cancelled and you will be notified by phone the day before.
Why is that?
It can be quite dangerous to fly under bad weather conditions, like a thunderstorm. So our experienced pilots will not go under such conditions.
What should I wear for the ride?
We suggest wearing comfortable clothing, like a jacket. Multiple layers are always better. Wearing a helmet for safety concerns is also a good idea. Sandals are not permitted.
Can children or older people participate?
All children must be above the minimum age of 9 years old, and they have to be accompanied by at least a parent or guardian. However, an adult has no age limit as long as they meet the health requirements.
What exactly are the health requirements?
Participants must at least be in fair physical condition. For example, they shall have no significant knee, hip, or back problems, and no recent surgeries or broken bones. They must also stand unassisted for an hour during the flight. It is the required position during the whole flight. As the balloon comes to land, all passengers will need to adopt the landing position with knees bent in front of them.
Are those rides safe?
Hot air balloon companies are required to have a commercial balloon pilot license, and all our pilots go through rigorous training before they are allowed to fly. It is a relatively gentle activity. However, the impact of a balloon landing can vary drastically, depending on factors like wind speed. Sometimes it is similar to the momentum of jumping off a small chair. If you cannot jump off a small chair, speaking to your doctor before booking a balloon flight is best.
Thank you very much. I think that's all I need to know.
Thanks for calling. Goodbye.
That is the end of part 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers to part 1. Part 2. You will hear the head teacher of Rivermead School talking to a group of journalists about facilities at the school that are open to the general public. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 14. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 14.
What I'd like to do at this meeting is to tell you a bit about the facilities that Rivermead School offers people in the community. I'd like to start by talking about the new theatre that we've just opened in our school. Its mission is to maximise opportunities for local audiences to experience productions of the highest quality. Amongst other things, this will involve offering a place where professional drama companies in the area can perform. But there'll also be opportunities to host national and international companies, both those which are up and coming and those which have already established a reputation. Details of our first season's theatre programme are already online. I hope you'll agree that it looks very exciting. As well as music and dance, there'll be drama from modern writers, and there'll also be a high proportion of shows aimed at children and families. You'll notice that there is one empty space in November. That's because the Chinese state acrobatic troupe have had to cancel their visit, but hopefully we'll be able to announce a replacement very soon. Now, we're often asked about the theatre's sources of funding. Well, a limited amount of money will come from various government subsidies, but the bulk of the revenue will be generated by the sale of tickets, which is one reason why we'd be grateful for your help in promoting the work of the theatre. In addition, there are opportunities for individuals to support the theatre on a regular basis through its sponsorship scheme. The benefits to donors include access to rehearsals and to show previews. But the new theatre isn't the only facility which is open to everyone. The school also has a small museum. This holds various objects that were found when the ground was excavated to lay the foundations for the building, as well as other historical objects. Entrance to this is free. We also have a state-of-the-art sports hall. This is reserved for our students during term time, but anyone can use it in the school holidays. And our cafeteria is worth a visit. It has a varied menu, and it's open all day to visitors, as well as staff and students.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 15 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 15 to 20.
Right. I'll just point out some things on the map of the school campus I've given you. First of all, the theatre. That's opposite car park P2 on the south side. You're not allowed to park anywhere except in the car parks. There are two marked on your map, P1 and P2, but there's a new car park which has only just been completed, and that's at the most northern end of the campus. Some people might want to consider coming by bus. There's a good service from the city centre to the school, and the bus stops at the roundabout. That's where it turns round to go back, so you have to get off there. It doesn't go up as far as Park Road. Then, to get to the sports hall, you take the right fork after the main entrance and just keep going past the classroom block. You have to go straight across the roundabout, and it's further on the right-hand side of that road. Then there's the cafeteria. There are various ways to get there because it's at the junction of Park Road and Rennie's Drive, on the north side of Park Road. In nice weather, you can sit outside to eat and admire the view. Then the museum is fairly central. Just go left after the main entrance. Take the first turning on the right, and when you reach a junction, the museum is facing you. Now,
That is the end of Part 2. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers to Part 2.
Part 3. You will hear two students named Peter and Lynn discussing Professor John Smith's article about online course. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Lynn, I just finished reading Professor Smith's article about the benefits of online courses. What are your thoughts on the article?
Hi Peter, when I read that article, it was clear to me that Professor Smith does not favour the traditional methods of classroom teaching. Although I can certainly acknowledge that there are some advantages to online course, I would say that internet courses are not always the best means for teaching and learning.
I think it's about time to revolutionize the old teaching style though.
But I would hope that students consider the negatives of online learning before enrolling in online courses.
This shouldn't be a big issue since online courses are so common these days. At least, I won't struggle so much. And Professor Smith points out that computer learning is well suited for some courses, especially the technical courses.
Unfortunately, that theory doesn't work for me.
What a shame. I got an A for that online computing course last year. Anyway, next part is personal interaction. I think the personal interaction offered by traditional teaching is overrated in the article and doesn't have much value. I think it's a distraction and that time could be better spent on the subject matter of the course.
Oh, I disagree strongly, Peter. You're dismissing the benefits of face-to-face interaction between students and teachers in traditional classroom settings. The article says that learning is a two-way street, and it's much easier for students to learn if they can ask questions and have discussions with their teachers.
I'm still not sure about that, but online courses can foster students' technological skills. In learning the subject matter online, students will gain the technical know-how they'll need in their future endeavors.
I can't agree more. What do you think Professor Smith means when he says online courses should be flexible in time?
That's essential. The point of learning online is to allow those who can't attend courses at fixed time.
I agree.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
The second part of the article shares some thoughts about the use of internet on campus. I'm kind of lost in that part.
Well, I think what he's trying to say is that students are already accustomed to doing their research on the internet, although some people say computers could be better used for other purposes. He emphasizes that many teachers are already instructing students to use the computer as a research tool.
Thanks for clarifying that. What about the next part saying that students are divided? Do you know what that means?
Well, it's certainly not that some students are afraid to use computers. They're already well accustomed to that.
You're right about that. Most students already use the internet as their primary source for news and information.
Professor Smith probably intends to say that computers are not easily accessible and available to all students.
Yes, not all students can afford computers. And as Professor Smith note, with online courses, the student support system is already in place. Instead of asking fellow students or the professor for assistance, students would be able to get any information they need online. And this assistance would be available immediately.
So, why do you think Professor Smith is recommending the use of computers as the school's main means of educating students? Do you think he is interested in reducing some of the fees associated with traditional classroom courses?
I think it's all about the money. He is promoting online courses simply because he thinks it will enable the school to make more money.
I never thought of it that way.
Many schools already have limited space for classrooms. If the school board wants to enroll more students, they can do that through distance learning mode. Instead of recruiting more teachers, the same course resources can be sold to both online and offline students. Plus, some computer companies are willing to financially support the schools that promote this type of learning.
I see. This is profitable in every sense. All right, now we'll have something to write about in the research paper.
That's the end of part 3. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers.
Section 4. You will hear part of a lecture related to how technology contributes to education. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40. Hello and welcome to today's seminar about education. Education is a lifelong process. There is no limit on when to start and stop, and we have been using technology so much these days in each and every sector of our lives, including education. Have we ever taken out a second to wonder if it's leaving a positive impact on our work, or it's just that we have been relying on it so much that we've become used to it? Earlier, there was a lot of debate about technology in education amongst the faculty at our school. Everyone had their own views. At first, some believed that the use of email between students and teachers made them interact with each other less, and this was not a good thing. But gradually, as technology was embraced by more educational institutes, they realized the importance of technology in education. Technology and education are a great combination if used together with a right reason and vision. Moreover, there is a strong relationship with the local economy when it comes to the effectiveness of the use of IT in education. In the more developed areas, the schools and institutions have better access to more advanced technology, and the teachers are better trained to use the technology to improve the quality of their classes. In contrast, in some less developed regions and remote areas where technology is not so common, the effectiveness can't be guaranteed. However, wherever they are, the most common example for teachers using technology in education is the usage of computers in their teaching methods. In most classrooms, you can see teachers using computers to present teaching notes and other materials. This year, the IT School of Westbrook University has implemented a brand new education mode. Since its implementation, both teachers and students have been praising this new mode. It involves a kind of software which allows students, as well as teachers, to talk and discuss with each other more easily, and they said they enjoy this way of communication. What's more, the mode offers students a channel to post any work that they are proud of, whether it's a nice photograph that they take, a case study they do, a song they record, or even just a great idea they have. So it gives them a chance to showcase their strength and build up their confidence. Many students use this feature to show the best of themselves. It also provides students an opportunity to choose what they learn on the internet, so they no longer have to sit in the classroom listening to something they are bored with. And they don't have to wait all night trying to register for their favorite elective courses. Compared with the traditional platform, it is more flexible. The open source which the new mode provides is free for students to use when they are trying to look up for online materials for their papers or researches, and the data will not easily be found on the internet because only registered users have access to the database. By the way, all the materials are original works of teachers or scholars, so there is no need to worry about the quality of the content. And with the overwhelming amount of unwanted information on the internet, this mode gives students a new search engine they can use on campus. So information like advertisements and skeptical sources will be filtered easily. This is a perfect example of new solutions to new problems. Apart from that, students can arrange their daily activities and improve their time management skills by simply ticking the boxes in the timetable online. They can set up their own starting time and their deadline for each assignment. Based on statistics, the use of this function has a positive effect on the students who constantly procrastinate. By the end of the first term, the number of students who asked for extension for their papers had decreased by 10%, which was quite an achievement. Another feature that seems very creative to me is that students can help people who have questions or problems relating to their field of studies on a special platform. They can even have some income by providing people with good solutions. So, this new mode is making the most of the IT. That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
You will hear a number of different recordings, and you will have to answer questions on what you hear. There will be time for you to read the instructions and questions, and you will have a chance to check your work. All the recordings will be played once only. The test is in 4 sections. Write all your answers in the listening question booklet. At the end of the test, you will be given 10 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now turn to section 1 on page 2 of your question booklet. Section 1. You will hear a company manager who wants to employ some new staff phoning a recruitment agency. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 4 on page 2. You will see that there is an example that has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Hello, Morgan Recruitment Agency. How may I help you?
Hello. I need to employ some new staff for my company, and I believe your agency can help with that.
Yes, of course. First, I'll get some details from you. Can I have your name, please?
Sure. My name is Peter Smith.
The manager of the company is called Peter Smith, so Smith has been written in the space. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 4.
Hello, Morgan Recruitment Agency. How may I help you?
Hello. I need to employ some new staff for my company, and I believe your agency can help with that.
Yes, of course. First, I'll get some details from you. Can I have your name, please?
Sure. My name is Peter Smith.
And can I also get a contact number?
Our number here is 047 888 3925.
Thank you. Can I also take down some details about your company? What's your company name?
It's Vander Transport.
Is that VAN? That's N for November, DER?
That's right. We are a large trucking company.
The transport industry is really booming, especially for fresh fruit and vegetables, isn't it?
Yes. We have a fleet of refrigerated trucks, though, so we mostly carry frozen goods, fish, vegetables, pizza, all sorts.
I see. So you said that you need some new staff members. When would you need them to start?
We'd like them to start around the 27th of August.
Just looking at my calendar here, the 27th is a Sunday, so do you mean the 28th?
Ah, yes, that's right. We're hoping to hold any interviews around July 29th.
I'll get more details of that later.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 5 to 10 on page 2. Now listen and answer questions 5 to 10.
Okay, now could you tell me about the jobs you have available so we can hopefully find some suitable candidates?
Sure. The first position is an office manager.
So does the job involve typical management duties?
Yes, but they also have to liaise with our main client, which is a large supermarket chain. So a background in a company like that is essential.
Okay, I'll note that down. It sounds like an important role. What are the minimum qualifications? Do they need a university education like a degree?
Yes, candidates would definitely have one.
Okay. Can you tell me about the next position?
We're looking for a full-time mechanic.
So I assume the job will involve doing general repairs on trucks.
Yes, that's right. And one of the other key responsibilities is to produce a written report for each vehicle.
I think we have several people on our books that would be suitable. And will the mechanic be doing much travelling?
Some, yes, but not a great deal. Unlike our next vacancy, that's for a full-time truck driver.
Right. What kind of shifts are they expected to work?
They usually travel around 1,000 kilometres over a 5-day period.
I see.
This job is different to our usual ones, though. It involves moving animals.
That sounds interesting.
Yes. Our company has just got a new contract, so we've bought new trucks and want a driver with that kind of experience.
Great. Is there anything else I should make a note of?
Well, we own all of the trucks, but apart from their driving duties, it is up to all our drivers to clean their vehicle between trips. We do give them extra time for that.
Okay. And are there any other positions available?
Yes, we're looking for a warehouse supervisor.
And what will this involve?
They'll be in charge of our new warehouse. It's located close to the airport. We've recently moved out of the city centre.
Oh, that must be more convenient. And what are some of the requirements for this role?
The successful candidate would be able to work effectively in a busy environment. Sometimes they'll be on call 24 hours for our nighttime deliveries.
So, given the hours they'll be working, I assume it will be necessary for the candidate to have a car?
Yes, that's right. Buses and trains just don't operate at those times, unfortunately.
OK, Mr. Smith. I'll have a look at the job seekers we have on our books and see if we have any suitable candidates for the positions you have available.
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 2 on page 3.
Practice of the day. You will hear a tour guide introducing a museum to a group of tourists. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 7. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 7.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Barton Museum. I am Carly and I am your tour guide. I would be taking you through all the places of interest in this museum before we actually set out to go. The first building we stop at is the Barton House, which was built by the man himself, Barton. When he first came to this area, it was largely uninhabited, and as a matter of fact, this place was a vast expanse of land where an abandoned farm was situated. After he bought it, he began building, and in about 3 years, the basic structure was complete, although he never really stopped building. As a man who loved the arts, Barton spent a good fortune on them. He had several paintings from all over the world, and his gallery is still considered one of the best in town. One of the most notable of his collection is the Chinese wallpaper, which was painted in the 18th century. Rumour has it that he paid hundreds of thousands of dollars for the piece of art. Barton kept adding some features to his house every year. He did this until the night he died. He was building a new bird room in which he collapsed and never came to himself. His dining room is also beautifully adorned with antiquity, from the tables to the stools to the mats. The chairs were bought from some Japanese merchants in the area then. Looking at the location of his house, which sits some feet higher than surrounding lands, it is possible to see areas of just green, lush vegetation that run for miles. At the backyard there is a garden which he started himself. He used to care for the plants there personally and made sure they never lacked water. He detested fertilizers as he believed that it would spoil the cycle of growth of the plants in the garden. He had some trees in the garden. They are not ordinary trees, but some rare ones, and they have been alive for decades now. Under one of those trees was his favourite spot, and history tells us that he used to sing and pray under the tree. Recently, the government brought in some flamingos here, as the environment supports their growth and development well. They are believed to make the scenery livelier and more beautiful. Although there are many exotic animals in the garden, swans are still the most popular animal here. They seem to be everywhere, and it was said that Barton thought that they were a gift from the heaven. It was forbidden to kill or hurt any of these animals in his time.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 8 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 8 to 10.
Now let's take a look at other interesting places this site has to offer. Away from the backyard there is a gallery just at the right side of the road, a few feet from the entrance, and there is usually a history exhibition every week. Halfway down the path, to the east of the toilet, we have the woodland, and the area is just beautiful. Barton decided to have it just because he loved the view. If you keep walking down the path in front of you to the west of the site, you will see a large gift shop beside the toilet. It has a large collection of handicrafts. These handicrafts are not actually made by Barton himself, but are imitations of his artistic works. As you have heard enough about this man, we would now proceed to see these things for ourselves. And I'm very sure that you...
That is the end of today's practice.
Part 3. You will hear 2 students, Alice and Tim, talking about the lectures they have had recently. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Tim, The lectures we've been attending recently have been very informative. I love the diversity of the information we're learning. It gives a broad overall picture of the subject.
True, Alice, and it's useful to have a mentor help us get the most out of our studies. I admit, I wasn't particularly confident before starting this course. I felt my skills were not at the level required to succeed.
I felt the same way, but with help from Mr. Jarvis, I'm growing in self-confidence and ability every day. I'm grateful he has the time to spend one-on-one with the students.
Yeah, I improved a lot.
I would like him to be able to give us more information on other subjects, however. He does give a very narrow view of economics.
And I would like some advice on how to prepare for our seminars. I'm never sure what to expect.
I'm focusing on passing my exams at the moment. Mr. Jarvis has been coaching me in this respect. He saw I was worried and offered to help.
I'm grateful for his help in this respect too.
I'll think about what to study next year once I've passed.
I'm not sure what I should do with my life. I can't see myself pursuing a career in economics.
You have many skills that could be useful in several different fields. You've talked with the tutor about it previously, haven't you?
Not regarding my career. I did discuss with him some options for next semester, which course I might choose. He had some great advice.
He suggested that I should continue studying in this field for now. I wonder if he might help me with the experiments I need to conduct. I should ask him.
Great idea. How do you feel about the essays we've been required to write?
I thought it can be difficult, and it is actually. But I'm just able to deal with it. There are so many assignments to complete. If they were any harder, I don't think I could manage.
I feel the same way. I was talking with John yesterday, and he believes the level of difficulty for our assignments could be higher, that they are too basic for him.
I'm happy for him. I think this subject poses many challenges though.
Why do you say that? Your mathematical skills are very high. I heard you aced all your exams throughout high school.
At first the subject didn't pique my interest. I've had no previous experience in economics, so this is all new ground for me.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30.
Well, you seem to be succeeding despite your misgivings. My one concern is that we don't have the opportunity to put the theory we're learning to any practical use. We learn many formulas and strategies, but with no practical application, it feels like we are wasting our time.
I don't agree. I feel that the project we worked on last month was very practical. We had the chance to test our skills and ascertain the areas we need to improve.
I will say that this course is giving us many opportunities to expand our networks, which will be of benefit when we have graduated and are seeking employment.
Yes, I've had the opportunity to meet many successful economists and businessmen, and hear how they rose to their positions through hard work and dedication. This has been of great value. Do you feel we have had enough opportunities to experience what it is like to work in a large organization?
At first I believed that to be the case. Now I'm not so sure.
I think we've been given ample opportunities, first through the work placement program, and then by means of the excursions we've taken to some of the most prominent financial institutions in the country. I feel though that through the course we haven't put enough emphasis on communication.
Communication is vital in the workplace, especially in an environment where one mistake can have serious consequences. But I believe we've been taught the necessary skills. Our lecture yesterday covered this topic thoroughly.
You mentioned you may not continue with economics. Is it perhaps because you believe we haven't been shown the career possibilities in this field?
No, our classes with Miss Hathaway have been beneficial in showing the possibilities. It seems the teachers here would like us all to continue in our study. They take every opportunity to assist us in identifying what specific career to pursue.
I agree. They have made it very clear what our options are, which I'm thankful for.
That is the end of part 3. You now have 30 seconds to check your answers.
Practice of the day. You will hear a man from a tax agency
Introducing taxation. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 5. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 5.
Hello all. Thank you for attending tonight's presentation. I am Mr. Dawkins from the Central Government Tax Agency, and I am here to provide you with information regarding filing and paying your taxes. First off, let me tell you that in preparing to file your taxes, evidence that can confirm your actual income has to be adequate. Then it should be submitted to the local authority. You can't just guess what your income was, or you may be charged a large sum of penalty. Income can come in different forms, including wage statements, independent freelancer statements. Currently, apart from invoices, we also take bank statements. Our tax period usually lasts for 1 year. Different states have different policies, but here it runs from April to the end of March next year. All of your current supervisors within the tax period are required to provide you with a wage statement. If you have not received an annual wage statement within 1 month of the end of the fiscal year, you should contact us and we will request them to send this statement immediately. But you need to ask your employers to provide the employment statement, because that's something we can't help. A failure to pay, along with the evasion of or resistance to taxation, is punishable by law. If you do not file an annual tax return, you may find that you will have to pay a penalty, up to $3,000 in some instances. So you'd better file your taxes promptly, since the government does not tolerate this. Everyone should make sure they file a tax return in a timely manner.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 6 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 6 to 10.
Now, I suppose you have known something about tax. They are very important. I hope you can always keep them in mind. And here are some random tips which are also helpful. When you purchase a new car during the tax period, please note that you will need to work out the latest tax rate and pay a line item tax for this. For those who just started getting to know tax filing, I do not recommend that you take multiple types of taxes into consideration at your first attempt. The calculation will be more straightforward with just one type of tax. Please know that most people use their computers to deal with their taxes. When using your computer to do your taxes or subscribe to an online tax service, you will find many advantages that don't exist when you do it at an office. One of the advantages of preparing your taxes online is that you can save whatever information you have gathered and then resume your preparations at another time. In doing this, since the tax information won't take much of the storage space, you don't have to worry about whether your computer will be able to accommodate the information you have gathered. Also, in doing your taxes online or in using an online tax service, you will find that mistakes are less likely to happen, as the online tax preparation programs have safeguards to prevent you from omitting required information. Generally, to begin working on your taxes, you will go to the tax office and inquire the office workers and finally fill in some forms. But for now, you can go to our website and download some. If necessary, you can take some time to complete a questionnaire, which will give you advice on which type of form you should fill in. If there are any questions you cannot answer, you can call to speak to someone in person. Thank you for attending tonight's presentation. Please know that my Central Government Tax Agency associates and I are always willing to help you with your tax preparation by answering any questions you might have.
That is the end of today's practice.
Section 1. You will hear a man telephoning to ask for information about swimming lessons. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 6 on page 2. You will see that there is an example that has been done for you. On this occasion only, the conversation relating to this will be played first.
Hello, City Swim School.
Oh, hello. I wanted to ask about swimming lessons. That's in a class, not individual.
Right. Well, we do group lessons at various levels. To start off with, we have what we call the Water Babies class.
The first class is called Water Babies, so babies has been written in the space. Now we shall begin. You should answer the questions as you listen, because you will not hear the recording a second time. Listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 6.
Hello, City Swim School.
Oh, hello. I wanted to ask about swimming lessons. That's in a class, not individual.
Right. Well, we do group lessons at various levels. To start off with, we have what we call the Water Babies class. That's for babies of 3 months and over.
Really? As young as that?
Yes, that's really the best time to start.
Right. Well, we do have a baby, so I'll make a note of that. What do they actually do in the lessons?
Well, the main aim is just to familiarise them with the water so they feel at ease there. They get the children to enjoy themselves. They have lots of toys and things they can use to play with in the water.
Right. And how much do the lessons cost?
They're held on Tuesday mornings, and each lesson costs £3.80. It's not really a course as such.
OK. Well, I'll talk to my wife about that. But I was actually ringing about lessons for me.
OK. So, are you a beginner?
Not exactly, but I'm not very good.
Well, the beginners' classes are really for people who don't have any experience of swimming. They aim to teach you techniques for breathing in the water, and they get you to do things like put your head underwater and open your eyes.
OK, I can do that.
And by the end of the course, they aim to have you swimming 5 metres.
I think I can probably just about do that.
OK, so you'd be better in the intermediate class then. That's where you learn the main swimming strokes. Front stroke, backstroke and so on.
What about diving?
Yes, they'd teach you how to do that. And you'd also do some underwater swimming.
Not with a tank or anything?
Oh no, not scuba, just ordinary underwater swimming. And in the intermediate course you also look at water safety, both in the pool and when swimming in other places.
OK. Well, that sounds the right level for me, I think. So how much does that cost?
£61 for a course. That's 10 lessons.
Can you tell me a bit more about the class? How many people would there be in it?
Well, the intermediate class is usually around 8 to 10. That's what we aim at, though occasionally it might go up to 12.
OK, that sounds quite a reasonable size, not too many. And the class is for adults, is it?
Yes.
OK. And just out of interest, is there an advanced class?
Yes, They focus on developing more efficient swimming techniques and on working on your speed. And they also prepare you for competitive swimming.
OK. No, I think I'd want to start with the intermediate one, really.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 7 to 10 on page 3. Now listen and answer questions 7 to 10.
Now, is there anything special I need to know?
Well, the classes are on Tuesdays, and the first lesson is on January the 13th. So you need to register before then. January the 8th is the latest, but it's filling up quickly, so I'd do it straight away. You can pick up a form here or get one off the internet. And classes are at 7:30 p.m.
Right. Then I just roll up with my swimming trunks. Do I have to bring my own towel?
That's right. We provide all participants with a swimming hat, though.
Oh, I don't usually wear one.
Well, we do insist on it, actually. It helps the instructor to identify you, apart from anything else. Oh, and don't forget you need a 20p coin for the locker.
Oh, OK. Right, well, I've been meaning to do this for ages. I really need to get some more exercise, and everyone says swimming is good for your health.
Yes, and a lot of people find it improves their confidence too. And of course it could save your life, or even someone else's.
That's right. OK, well, thanks very much. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
That is the end of section 1. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Section 2. You hear a talk by a counsellor from the University of New South Wales, who will introduce some useful facilities and services on the campus. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 15. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 15.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the University of New South Wales. The first thing I'd like to do at today's orientation session is get you all oriented. That means tell you the location of some useful facilities and services. So, first of all, take out the maps we gave you all as you came in the door. The map is the big yellow sheet of paper. As you can see on the map, north is at the top, south at the bottom, etc. Which way is north? Well, look through that window on my left, your right. See the rising sun? That would have to be east. So north must be directly behind me. Now, we're at the campus main gate. The recreational facilities are on my right hand, and its opposite is the student centre. No questions? Good. Pretty easy, right? OK, did everyone eat breakfast at the student food service this morning? Was the food good? Yes, I am joking. I've eaten there too. So, after a meal like that, you must be eager to go to a doctor, right? Well, I have good news for you. The Student Health Centre is located about half a kilometre straight north of here. Look on your maps. You see the street on the east side of this building? Ned Kelly Avenue? Just follow that about 500 metres and the health centre will be on your left at the 3rd cross street. Now, I know you all just got here, so you must be wondering how to tell your folks you've arrived safely, how much you miss the dog, and how you already need more money. If you don't have an iPhone, you probably are wondering where to find a computer. Well, I have good news. If you go straight out of its door, and walk down the garden street. You'll see the internet unit on your left side, just next to the gym. The hours are posted on the door, and the computers are free, but you must bring your student ID card with you. Like I tell everyone, if you need help with anything, you can probably find right here in the Student Centre. Do you see the 4 buildings there between the Student Centre and the library? Those are the dormitories. The men's dorms are the 2 on the south, the women's the 2 on the north. Okay, I'm sorry to have to tell you, but the university has been doing a lot of repairs and remodelling, and it's not all done yet. So there may be some small problems with your dorm rooms. Maybe the window doesn't open. Maybe an air conditioner is missing or does not work. If there are any problems, you can go to the complaint office, which is right beside the teaching building between the Parker Street and the Crammer Street. Just tell them your problem, and they should have it fixed by the time you graduate in 4 years. I'm joking, but please be patient. There are a lot of little things they need to take care of. Tired of the school food? No? Give it a week. Or maybe you just need a place to get coffee in the wee hours of the night during one of those marathon study sessions. Either way, you definitely have to check out the little cafe just past the women's dormitories. They've got free Wi-Fi, so a lot of students saddle up with coffee and a bagel for hours on end to get work done.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 16 to 20. Now listen and answer questions 16 to 20.
As for the dorm rooms, I have some bad news and some good news. The bad news is the rooms are small and you'll probably be sharing space with at least 3 other students. The good news is that each room has its own bathroom. What's good about sharing a bathroom with 3 strangers? Good question. Okay, call it bad news and worse news. Hey, maybe try this for good news. Each dorm has a kitchen. If you want to make snacks or meals, you can do it there. You can buy food containers at any campus convenience store, so you can store your food in the kitchen. But a word of warning, you should definitely write your name on your food containers. Sad to say, there are food thieves among your fellow students. Speaking of thieves, a word about security. I mean, this is Australia, and we do get drunken bushrangers wandering onto campus. Each of you will be given a key for your dorm room. Don't lose it. You have to pay for any replacement and fill out a bunch of papers too. Red tape, huh? Your key does not work for the front door of your dorm, however. To the right of each door, there's a keypad with numbers. When you move in, they will tell you the code you use to enter the door. Please do not tell the code to people who do not live in the dorm. Let's see. Have I forgotten anything? Oh yes, most of you are not rich, correct? So when your clothes get dirty, you can't just throw them away and buy new ones. That means you have to learn to do laundry. Or, men, that means you have to hurry up and get married. If you decide to wash those clothes and not get married, there are laundries in each dorm. Where? Oh, I almost forgot to tell you. The laundry for each dorm is in the basement. Some real good news this time if you're a student, it is free. You do have to buy your own soap, however. The laundry closes, by the by, at 11:30. And now that I've mentioned 11:30, please remember, the dorm doors are locked at 11:30 p.m. Your code will not work. If you want to get in, you'll have to call the night watchman. Don't worry, you can get that number at the dorm office. Yes, the dorm office and the complaint office are the same office. All right then, before we continue, are there any questions?
That is the end of section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to section 3.
Part 3. You will hear two students called Shona and Peter discussing their internship options. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 25. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 25.
Hi, Shona.
Hi, Peter. Have you made up your mind about which internship program to apply for?
Yes, pretty much.
I'm entirely at a loss. I mean, there are so many good ones. Can you give me some tips?
Sure.
What is your top priority when weighing up these programs?
Well, I guess I'd go for ones that can help me with the skill set I lack for my future career. I still need a lot of practical training in dealing with statistics. But keep in mind that you don't want to set your goal too grand, like drawing up a business plan. You might end up nowhere.
I see. So I want to learn how to organise ideas and present them.
Good. Now you've nailed step 1.
Now what?
You must also consider your strengths for a suitable internship program. Otherwise, you might get rejected or end up with one that you are incapable of doing.
But I have no idea what I'm good at.
Communicate with people around you or whom you've worked with. That's what I did. I thought I was a good team leader, but many people I've worked with for various projects mentioned something else. They admire that I could work around the clock to finish projects on time. And indeed, I'm more focused and perform better when I'm pushed for time.
Good point. So what do you plan to do next?
I'll visit the careers officer to help me with the school application form. You know, the one we have to submit before applying to companies.
But it is unnecessary to fill it in. It's only optional.
Really? I'm glad I heard from you. Then I'll ask the careers officer to look at my personal statement and give me some tips on polishing it up.
Don't you need help with your CV?
No, I'm good. I have already learned to write it in class.
That's good. So what kind of company did you choose?
I've decided to apply for an IT company.
Why is that?
Well, even though I've learned how the IT industry developed in the past from different lectures, I know nothing about its latest trends. I'm prepared to work in an IT company and fill in the information gap.
I see. What do you plan to do next term?
I think I'll stick to most of the optional modules I've chosen, but regarding the language sessions, I'm doing poorly in Japanese. I'd better drop it before wasting more time. I think I'll learn Spanish instead.
Oh, I learned Spanish for a year. I think you'll find it interesting. Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 26 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 26 to 30. Do you know what job opportunities these companies offer interns?
I've searched online and browsed some of the schemes. Do you know SIEC?
Yes, I heard they offer internship positions dealing with customer interaction management, but I'm not quite sure what that means.
Well, the position offers the chance to become fully aware of customer value and keep in touch with customers to keep them highly engaged and satisfied. These include activities such as PR, communications, marketing, and customer service.
Sounds like loads of work to do. What about Gemini Technologies?
It's an IT consulting company. Although many employees say it's stressful working there, I want to apply for this one.
Why is that?
Actually, the company provides service to improve software architecture. But that's pretty demanding, as a team of software engineers has to provide detailed analysis and suggestions for required changes before the deadline. As an observer and participant of a particular project, an intern can learn how to work to a strict deadline.
That's not my area of expertise, but I'm sure you'll excel at this.
I certainly do hope so. Have you checked out Deloitte?
Of course, that's a renowned accounting firm, and thus its internships offer excellent learning experiences in this regard. You know, things like examining a company's financial statements, the income statement, balance sheet, and cash flow statement. I want to give it a try, but I might get rejected, so I need a backup plan. Have you read anything about Kearney?
Yes, it is another consulting firm. It provides opportunities to reach out to other business partners and pay attention to networking.
Well, that sounds interesting.
I'm thinking about Vortex, but I haven't got anything useful from its website.
I worked there last summer. It's an international company with headquarters in Spain, so most of the managers here speak Spanish. Thanks to the internship experience, I became fluent in it.
Right, that's not for me.
That is the end of part 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers to part 3.
Section 4. You will hear part of a lecture about oxytocin and trust. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40. The development of trust is an essential social tool, allowing people to form productive and meaningful relationships, both at a professional and personal level. Trust is indispensable in friendship, love, families, and organizations, and plays a key role in economic exchange and politics. Much recent evidence indicates that trust contributes to economic, political, and social success. When we make contacts with strangers, such as doing business with the clients who we meet for the first time, our trust in them can only rely on their kindness. So, from our own judgment or the comments from other people, we can have a rough idea if the stranger is trustworthy. Trust is important because it is the basis around which all human relationships evolve. Without trust, there can be no relationship. Trust can come naturally, or it can be manifested. If you find trust of this magnitude in life, then you are lucky. Also, you can always count on them to protect through all, if not most, of life's perils. Trust is important because if you don't trust someone, then they are not available. Believe it or not, reducing the chance of suffering from poverty is to understand trust, because when you trust other people, you can have more support and resources. However, our ability to trust others varies from individual to individual, just like different people's ability of recognizing a person's face is not the same. Bonds of trust are also extremely fragile. A single act of betrayal, such as a marital affair, can instantly erase years of trustworthy behavior. The consequences of such breaches in confidence can be disastrous, and not only for a relationship. The study demonstrates how oxytocin can facilitate social interactions after trust has been violated, by potentially lowering defense mechanisms associated with social risks and by overcoming negative feedback that is important for adapting behavior in the future. Luckily, oxytocin in our body has the ability to inspire trust in and among people. This chemical is released whenever interaction happens between people. To study social interactions, economists and more recently neuroscientists take advantage of a simple experiment. Two participants play the so-called trust game. The first participant is faced with the decision to keep a sum of money or share it with the second participant, who has no obligation to give the money back. He would get more money if the second person returns it. In this game, the first person is left with an important social dilemma: to trust or not to trust. Although it is more profitable to trust, doing so leaves the investor at risk of betrayal. Trust is not something that naturally occurs when two people meet for the first time. It involves a process. One person has to show the quality of being trustworthy to the other person. This can be achieved by certain behaviors and communication. Therefore, trust is conditional. People should not take it for granted. Oxytocin does not only exist in human beings. Animals also have this gift, and it can be seen when they have cooperation with each other. Oxytocin in monkeys, for example, allow them to work together to find food and to fight against enemies. The Nash equilibrium's game theory: the first participant will make the best decision he can, with no expectations that the second participant would change his decision. The second participant will do the same. So, the outcome depends on the decision of the other person. This game is similar to the one we just talked about. The oxytocin level doesn't stay the same in a person's body. Studies have found that people who are under a lot of stress would have higher levels of oxytocin. Oxytocin causes a substantial increase in trust among humans, thereby greatly increasing the benefits from social interactions. It's also noted that the effect of oxytocin on trust is not due to a general increase in the readiness to bear risks. On the contrary, oxytocin specifically affects an individual's willingness to accept social risks arising through interpersonal interactions. To sum up, oxytocin is like a kind of social glue that is helpful in social bonding. Further research is needed to explore oxytocin and trust, and how this hormone can be used to strengthen our trust in others and even treat mental disorders that specifically relate to deficiencies in social behavior. Next, we're going to talk about That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
You will hear a telephone conversation between a woman who is moving to London and an employee of a relocation service. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 7. Now listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 7.
London Relocation Services, Daniel speaking. How may I help you?
Good morning. My family and I are moving to London later this year, and I wonder if you can help.
Sure. First of all, I'll need to get some personal details. May I take your full name, please?
It's Anna Woods.
Thanks. Where are you moving from?
Northern Ireland, just outside Belfast, actually.
Right. And what's your current address?
It's 118 Fordyce Park. I'll spell that for you. It's Fordyce. And that's in Ballysillan.
And what's the postcode?
It's BT14 9BJ.
All right. And could I take a contact phone number?
I'll give you my mobile number as you can get me on that anytime. It's 07840 51963.
Great. Got that. Now, we always like to get a bit more information about the families that we're moving. It helps with the search. Are you moving for work?
Yes, my husband's just got a new job in London.
And what about you? Do you work?
Well, I've been working as a teaching assistant recently, but I'm actually a qualified nurse and I'd like to get back into that if possible.
Right. And do you have any children?
Yes, a son. So we need to find a school for him.
Is it a secondary school you'll be looking for?
No, he's still in primary school. He's not quite at the secondary level yet.
Fine. So, let's go on to talk about your requirements for the property. Do you have a preferred location? Is your husband's job in the centre?
No, it's in East London, but we'd rather live somewhere quieter.
Sure. There are some lovely areas in the south.
OK, that sounds great. Now, my husband doesn't want to spend too long commuting to work every day.
So I imagine that ideally he'd like to be not too far from a station then.
Yes, he drives now, but I guess that's not going to be possible, and he's not keen on buses.
What about you or your son? Do you have any preferences? Does your son do any sport, for example?
He's quite active, so I'm sure he'd love a park nearby to run around in. He doesn't do swimming or anything like that.
Great.
Before you hear the rest of the conversation, you have some time to look at questions 8 to 10. Now listen and answer questions 8 to 10.
So, what sort of property do you have in mind?
We have friends who live in an amazing flat over there, but as we've always lived in a house, I think we'll stick with that. We'd find it hard to adapt to a flat.
OK. And size-wise, how many bedrooms would you like?
Well, there's just myself, my husband and our son.
So you definitely need a 2-bedroom property. But how about having a guest room? I might be able to find a 3-bedroom property for you.
Yes, that would be ideal. We're sure to have family visiting often.
All right, I've made a note of that. Now, are there any other requirements for your new property?
Well, it's not essential, but it'd be handy to have an office for when my husband works from home. It doesn't need to be a big one. I guess it all comes down to budget.
Yes. OK, Anna. Well, I've certainly got enough to be getting on with, and I will...
That is the end of Part 1. You now have 1 minute to check your answers to Part 1.
You will hear a manager talking to company employees about moving to a new office building. First, you have some time to look at questions 11 to 16 on page 3. Now listen carefully and answer questions 11 to 16.
Thank you for coming to today's meeting, everyone. I'd like to give you some information about moving to our new office building so that you know what the plans are. So, first, let me explain why we're moving. Even though we've taken on quite a few new employees over the last year, we still have plenty of space here, but the problem is where we are. But we've now found the perfect place in the city centre. Originally, we chose this building in the suburbs because the rent was much cheaper, but our clients aren't always keen on coming out here. I visited the new office last week, and I'm pretty sure that you'll find the greatest advantage is the huge windows. I'm not sure we'll need desk lamps at all. Of course, we'll have everything checked out to make sure we can control the temperature of each office, and we may have to put some room dividers in some offices so that you're not disturbed by your colleagues' conversations. We've just set a date for the move. The finance department wanted us to wait until after the end of the tax year, April, but we've decided to move earlier. As soon as the sales conference is over in January, we'll move. That'll give us plenty of time to organise everything before you start taking your annual holidays. We've already put quite a bit of information about the move on the company website, like restaurants and cafes around the new office, but we're still checking bus routes and things like that, so transport information will be up by next Monday. Another thing still to get confirmed is which car park we can use and how many people can use it. OK, let's move on to some practical things you have to do now. Don't worry yet about taking home your photos and things like that. That can be sorted out much nearer the time, along with getting rid of any unwanted paperwork. We need to find out how many new desks and chairs to order, so could you make a list of any of the ones you use that are scratched or broken? Just one thing, all documents containing non-confidential information can go into the general packing boxes, but when it comes to documents containing confidential information, you'll need to put these in special bags. You'll be given grey plastic ones for this. So one thing to do now is go through your filing cabinets and identify which folders are confidential.
Before you hear the rest of the talk, you have some time to look at questions 17 to 20 on page 4. Now listen and answer questions 17 to 20.
Now, to help you prepare for the move, I'd like to talk about lifting heavy things. You shouldn't really have to do this because a removal company will be used,
but you might want to move a box out of your way or something. It's surprising how often people don't remember to use the handles on the boxes, although they all have them. You've all had the leaflet explaining that you should keep your back straight and your head up when lifting. And it also tells you to stand with your feet firmly on the ground and a little bit apart, so I think that's clear. But the leaflet emphasises the importance of not twisting to the left or right once you've picked something up, and if you're like me, that's easy to forget. I'd also like to talk about papers. If they've been stored for a long time, they can get mould on them, a sort of fungus, and as soon as you start moving them, the fungus gets disturbed. As you know, you can't open the windows in this building, but I suggest you use the gloves that we'll provide. We'll also get some face masks, but we've been advised that these shouldn't be necessary. What you should do is drink 1 or 2 litres of water a day. That's essential. Often the best time to do this sort of work is after your afternoon break, so that you can leave the building soon afterwards. Now, are there any questions?
That is the end of Section 2. You now have half a minute to check your answers. Now turn to Section 3 on page 5.
Section 3. You will hear 2 students named Mona and Ted talking about a presentation on design development. First, you have some time to look at questions 21 to 26. Now listen carefully and answer questions 21 to 26.
Ted, you've looked at my presentation, haven't you? What do you think of it?
Hey, Mona. Yes, I have. Before giving you some advice, I have a question. Why didn't you write about the development of design and its influence, or connection with social advancement, or even art movement? In my opinion, this direction would have more significance.
Actually, I just want to focus on the history of design. I'm particularly interested in its history from the 1800s. That's why I wrote about it.
I see. It could save some effort.
Not really. I've covered different areas of design, such as building, clothing, and products. It's a lot of work.
Right. Is it because you want to give a comprehensive talk?
To be honest, I was worried about my teacher's reaction. If I only talk about one area, she might think I've been lazy.
You know what? Even though it's okay to talk about different aspects, I think the topic is too broad. It would be hard for the listeners to focus on any specific area.
You are right. I only have about 45 minutes for the talk. Maybe I should narrow the range.
That would be much better. And you can use computer technology to assist you in your presentation, like using the CAD or other computer software.
I'm not sure. Although computer technology can improve the visual effects of my presentation, I'd rather use the traditional way since I'm talking about the history of design. I guess traditional media is more affected by computers rather than designing industry.
That makes sense. You could do it your own way. As for the content, you mentioned purism, and you said it can save people's effort. I don't really agree with that. I think it's not really easy to achieve. On the other hand, I do think it's important to apply this concept in architecture. I mean, the buildings should look simple and elegant.
That's a good point. Ted, what do you think I should do to further improve my talk?
Well, I think you have read enough books about it. So, it's not the theories that you lack. Why don't you visit the Design Museum in the north of the city? One of my friends went there last month, and he said it was worth it. I'm sure it can give you some inspiration.
Before you hear the rest of the discussion, you have some time to look at questions 27 to 30. Now listen and answer questions 27 to 30.
How do you usually prepare for a presentation? You have done it many times, right?
You can say that. When I prepare for a presentation, I would first try to come up with an introduction telling the audience what my topic is. It's very important to grasp people's attention and let them know what you want to talk about.
Okay, I think so. A good beginning can mean everything.
Exactly. Maybe you could use a story to start. Step 2, I would research deeper into the topic and give the audience something new.
Yeah, that's what I've been working on. I always try to look for more related information online. I want them to learn something from my presentation.
Since you work so hard, they will like it. I noticed that you use a lot of pictures in your slides. What I would do is put a statement under each picture, so the audience would know what exactly the pictures are about.
I just thought it would be more impressive to use only pictures. All right, I will add that.
In the next step, you should try illustrating slide by slide. Each slide should only contain one thought or idea, so all of these thoughts will link together in your illustration.
This step would need a lot of practice.
Exactly. A lot of practice is needed before you stand in front of the real audience. There's one final step you should not forget. I suggest you prepare some text handouts with important details.
What are they for?
The audience can reflect on what you talk about in and after your presentation.
I've never thought about that. Thank you so much. Ted, you're a great help.
No problem, Mona.
That is the end of section 3. You now have half a minute to check your answers.
Section 4. You will hear a talk on the research of the graphical symbol. First, you have some time to look at questions 31 to 40. Now listen carefully and answer questions 31 to 40.
Good morning, everyone. Today I'm going to talk about the graphical symbol. A graphic symbol is a written symbol that is used to represent speech, such as those used in the Greek alphabet. The term graphic symbol encompasses anything from the logographs used in Egyptian hieroglyphic writing to ancient Chinese pictograms. Early symbols were based on pictographs and ideograms before they were developed into logographic writing systems. These systems are still in use in some non-literate cultures in Africa, the Americas, and Oceania. Indeed, elements of pictography are still found in modern Chinese characters, and it is often an interesting exercise to trace the origins of some Chinese characters. Pictographs remain in common commercial use today as signs, instructions, or statistical diagrams. Road signs and public toilet signs, and even flat pack assembly instructions utilizing pictures, are considered pictographic. Ancient graphic writing systems provide researchers with a wealth of knowledge about past civilizations. In 1799, One of the most important historical discoveries was made by accident when members of Napoleon's expedition to Egypt found a stone in Rosetta that exhibited 3 different scripts. The stone, now known as the Rosetta Stone, was studied in significant depth by scholars and was first deciphered by Frenchman Jean-François Champollion in 1822. He was able to correctly determine the phonetic values of the symbols, and later research has confirmed his findings. In many of these symbols, lines are used to portray a multitude of meanings, and knowledge and understanding of these lines holds the key to comprehension of graphic writing systems. A key moment in the history of communication was the invention of the camera obscura, or camera. Although the concept can be traced back to the 5th century BC Chinese philosopher Mo Ti, the first photographic image was ultimately created in 1826 by Joseph Nicephore Nicephh. Photography, as it was later known, enables researchers to piece together and better understand history. Today, photography forms a huge part of everyday life, and most publications contain a vast number of photographs. Photography is used in advertising and is now becoming a way to increase awareness of existing world issues. For example, animal welfare charities are increasingly using photography to advertise animals that are at high risk of endangerment. Charity workers are sometimes flown to far-flung locations to document the suffering endured by high-risk animals in an attempt to raise human awareness of their consumption activities and how they impact others. One recent high-profile campaign was undertaken by attaching a camera to the foot of a bird in order to obtain photographs of the animals in their natural habitats and understand how often they come into contact with human waste. A soon-to-be-released documentary about the suffering of animals on Midway Island shows the full extent to which human consumption is harming animals thousands of miles away from us. As photography continues to progress, with the use of drones now becoming somewhat commonplace, we should expect more and more objects to be included in the future, expanding the horizon of photography ever further. Indeed, the downward pressure on traditional media prices means that media companies are being forced to get creative on how to make a profit. Many have found that the answer to this lies in advertising, and companies are now willing to devote a large portion of their budgets to advertising in newspapers. By the same token, marketing has become an essential part of a company's business model, often meaning the success or failure of a company. As a result, much time and money has been pumped into the development of effective branding, with attractive packaging playing a large role in this. However, many governments are now seen to be cracking down on marketing and packaging in an attempt to protect consumers from being misled. In particular, tobacco companies are now subject to ever-increasing regulation. For example, in the United Kingdom, legislation is soon to pass preventing any form of branding or differentiation on cigarette packaging in efforts to curb the harmful effects of smoking. Finally, one must not forget the fundamental role that graphic writing systems have had to play in mathematics. Graphs, icons, and diagrams often form the very basis of these branches of academia. Indeed, one needs to look no further than chemistry's periodic table to see a perfect example of graphic writing systems in use today.
That is the end of section 4. You now have half a minute to check your answers. That is the end of the listening test. In the IELTS test, you will now have 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet.
This is the IELTS listening test. You will hear a number of different recordings and you will have to answer questions on what